sometimes when I say something about coincidence, I do get some comments saying there's no such thing as coincidence. With that in mind, right, this is quite concerning. So, on the 14th of February, you probably remember, I did a video on it. Barack Obama went onto a podcast and he claimed that aliens were real.
Are aliens real?
They're real, but I haven't seen them, and they're not being kept in, what is it?
Area 51?
Area 51.
And then obviously it went back to Trump. And then on the 19th, I think, 19th, 20th, depending on where you are, Donald Trump put out this post saying that basically with all the excitement around this UFO, he's going to sort of do what he can to disclose alien life and UFO phenomenon. So that went quite wild, right? But I think what a lot of people have forgotten about, and we'll get to the main part of the video in a second, but I think that what a lot of people have forgotten about is how a couple of days later, after Donald Trump mentions that, he's going to get all his resources on top of this disclosure for you, 3.8 million UFO alien-related files go missing. Deleted. 3.8 million files go missing. Now, again, I've mentioned this on another video, but I wanted to set the tone first before we go into this next crazy story. And I'm sorry I'm a bit behind on this, to be honest with you. Obama says there's aliens. Trump says he shouldn't be saying that. That's classified information. The next day or a couple of days later, he says, okay, we're going to look into this alien and UFO phenomena. A couple of days after that, 3.8 million files of UFO and alien files just completely get eradicated. But I would say they do get retrieved, okay? They do get retrieved back, and no files are permanently lost. And then after all that, right, we have a gentleman that goes missing. And this isn't any ordinary gentleman, okay? This is Neil McCasland. Listen to this.
A 68-year-old retired Air Force officer has been missing since February 27th in Albuquerque, New Mexico. A silver alert has been issued. And that's typically reserved for older missing people, sometimes who have health-related issues. Now, to be clear, this isn't just any missing senior citizen, no. This is Major General William Neil McCasland, a former commander of the Air Force Research Laboratory, the organization responsible for advanced military technology and science. He also worked on space systems and special programs at the Pentagon, projects that were so classified that many inside the government never even got to see them. And here's where the story really gets strange. The base that he once led, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, is historically linked to Project Blue Book. This is the reported U.S. military's official investigation into UFO sightings. McCasland once oversaw a $2 billion budget and some of America's biggest secrets. So when somebody like that disappears, you know people start asking questions, particularly since McCasland had disappeared right after the president announced that he was directing the release of UFO and extraterrestrial materials. So you can see why there are those online who are fully into theory mode right now, right?
So before we get into that, because Ross Coulthart has something to say, but this is something else that he's also mentioned. Astral on X has posted this. Ross Coulthart outlines an email involved Tom DeLonge, John Podesta, the Skunkworks CEO, Jen Michael Carey, and Jen Neil McCasland to plan UFO disclosure around 2016.
Person calling himself Neil Mac, MCC, responded to a Google Hangout invitation, and this is in a John Podesta email in 2016. And it was an invitation to check the time of a meeting. And the other meeting attendees were Tom DeLonge, John Podesta, Skunkworks boss Rob Weiss, retired Major General Michael Carey, and we now know that the Neil Mac was Major General Neil McCasland. And he'd come in under an email handle of his wife, Susan McCasland Wilkinson.
Which I've also got a tweet of what she says about his disappearance as well, which is Bit weird.
And she's an astrophysicist and a former astronaut candidate with NASA who's married to General Neil McCasland, who up until July 2013 was the commander of the US Air Force's research laboratory at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. It is beyond doubt, and I say this regularly, that General Neil McCasland and General Michael Carey, clearly with some degree of authorization from someone in the military or intelligence establishment, were briefing Tom DeLonge and John Podesta about disclosure. There was a clear contemplation that there was going to be some kind of a disclosure. On the 24th of September 2016, there were recommendations from Neil McCasland for a White House memo, presumably to come from a future Hillary Clinton presidency, that would set out instructions for divulging information in coordination with the Defense Department, the Director of National Intelligence, and NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. This sounds very much like General Neil McCasland was setting out a plan for UAP disclosure.
Let me just, before I jump into the other video, 2016, what were the main UFO in 2016? South Wales, February 2016. Multiple witnesses reported large silent triangular UFO that appeared over the village of Pinchurk. Witnesses observed smaller red and green craft emerging from the object, were engaged in suspected battle with British Air Force helicopters. Residents reported unusual non-melting snow and military personnel in civilian clothes conducting a cleanup. What the hell? UK, the triangular-shaped UFO, often referred to by this nickname, was reported in the skies near the Merry Hill Shopping Centre in Dudley. Orlando, Florida sighting. A UFO in July 4th, 2016. A UFO was observed and reported on Independence Day in Orlando, with witnesses claiming the object was dropping materials while lit up. Alaska orb incident, 2016. A security guard filmed a UFO splitting into 3 distinct orbs. Reports continued across the UK, including incidents in the Essex involving fast-moving zigzagging lights, and others in Cambridgeshire, where result in police being notified. That's a lot. That's a lot. The reason I'm saying that is because did the UFO phenomena get sort of out of hand, and they were like, look, we're going to have to talk about this now. The idea that the 2016 is supposed to be the UFO alien disclosure comes mostly from conspiracy. Well, okay, I just threw a dart and it hit bullseye. Internet speculation and reinterpretations of leaked documents, not from any confirmed government plan. There isn't credible evidence that governments officially scheduled alien disclosure for that year. However, several events and narratives made 2016 seem a likely year. Okay, the Podesta emails, what we've just listened to, all right, with the Hillary Clinton. Tom DeLonge, insider claims. Along 2015-16, Tom DeLonge claimed he was working with the government insider preparing gradual disclosure. He later founded the Stars Academy of Arts and Science, which helped release military UFO footage 2017. The 2017 Pentagon UFO revelations. The year 2016, major news outlets revealed the secret Pentagon program, Advanced Aerospace Threat Identified Program, AATIP. This story broke in the New York Times. Prophecy and timeline theories. Okay. Anyway, right.
Is an
interesting
journalist who hosts News Nation's very popular Reality Check podcast, covers the stories that the mainstream media is too afraid to touch. Thank you so much for coming on the show. You called this a grave national security crisis. Why?
Good evening, Jesse. Well, Major General McCasland, as you rightly noted, was an extremely senior commander at the Air Force Research Laboratories, which does a lot of the materials, aerospace, weapons research for the US Air Force and indeed the entire US Defense Department. He was in that role until 2013, and I'm told he was very, very highly cleared, very highly respected. And of course, as you rightly noted, Air Force Research Laboratories, Wright-Pat, is the location where the rumoured UAP materials from the 1947 Roswell incident were taken. It's long been rumoured to be a repository for top secret materials that were recovered from alleged non-human craft.
This is mad. This is mad.
And of course, McCasland has been named previously in leaked emails that associated him with a plan back during the Clinton-Trump election campaign where John Podesta, Hillary Clinton's campaign manager, was involved in conversations with General McCasland and another general from the US Air Force about what was clearly an intention to declassify and release UFO secrets to the American public.
He has a wealth of information, a storied career. The circumstances surrounding his disappearance are bizarre, to say the least. No clear direction of travel, no identified clothing. That's what makes this so odd. Before we even get into the allegation of, let's say, someone took him, can we just cut right through it? I mean, the idea that he disappears right after the announcement that there's going to be a release of these UFO files, these UAP files, extraterrestrial files. I know a lot of people are trying to make a connection. Is there anything you're seeing besides it just being a very strange coincidence?
It's an alarming synchronicity. I think we can put it at that, Jesse. We do know that General McCasland was well respected by people who were pushing for UAP disclosure, including very senior people in Hillary Clinton's campaign back in 2016. We know he was planning to disclose UAP secrets in what was expected to be a Clinton presidency. And it's really interesting that this follows so closely, his disappearance follows so closely on the heels of President Trump's announcement that he was intending to declassify UFO files. A promise, by the way, which the president hasn't followed up on yet.
Well, Iran. I mean, that took center stage.
Yeah. So I've actually got a tweet now from Neil McCasland's wife, okay, Susan McCasland Wilkerson. Now she says this, all right. Neil McCasland has now been missing for 1 week. There's been no indication whatsoever where he might be. There have been dozens of searches on foot, both official and friends and neighbours of Neil's, who coordinate with the official sources. There has also been horseback searches, drones and different capabilities, helicopters, 3 different types of search dogs, neighborhood canvassing, and looking for ring or wildlife videos. On that note, I have seen today, it's been updated, that more than 600 New Mexico residents have been asked to hand over their home security footage as part of the investigation into the disappearance of the retired Major General Neil McCasland. Don't know why I can't roll off the tongue there. Organizations involved are Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office, which is the lead organization, Albuquerque Field Office of the FBI, NM State Search and Rescue, Albuquerque Mountain Rescue, Air Force Office of Special Investigations, Albuquerque Police Department, and maybe others of which I'm unaware. I'm so grateful to one and all for their unflagging dedicated efforts and support. I would like to take this opportunity to dispel some of the misinformation circulating about Neil and his disappearance, mostly from uninformed media sources. The initial silver alert from BCSO mentioned medical conditions which some have taken it mean Alzheimer's. Neil is at some risk, but not from dementia. He was not confused and disorientated. There was no concerning Friday morning telephone call to a close relative. I have been in contact with all of his close relatives and some not so close ones. This is complete fabrication. All right, number 3. This is where it starts getting a bit interesting. It is true that when Neil was in the Air Force, he had access to home highly classified programs and information. He retired from the Air Force almost 13 years ago and has had only very commonly held clearances since. It seems quite unlikely that he was taken to extract very dated secrets from him. It is true that Neil had a brief association with the UFO community through Tom DeLonge, former frontman for Blink-182 and founder of the organization To the Stars. Neil worked with Tom for a bit shortly after his Air Force retirement as an unpaid Neil's Choice consultant on military, technical stroke scientific matters to lend verisimilitude to Tom's fiction book and media activities. After the Russians hacked John Podesta's emails, see Neil's Wikipedia page, there was less contact with Tom and the community pushing for release of the UFO information. This connection is not a reason for someone to abduct Neil. Neil does not have any special knowledge about the ET bodies. That's quite interesting. Neil does not have any special knowledge about the ET bodies. So, okay. Maybe it's just the way she's wrote it. But to me, that sounds like there are ET bodies, but he doesn't have any information about them. I would imagine if there was no ET bodies, it would say along the lines of Neil does not have any special knowledge about any ET bodies. Anyway, and debris from the Roswell crash stored at Wright-Patterson. So at this point, with absolutely no sign of him, maybe the best hypothesis is that aliens beamed him up to the mothership. However, no sightings of mothership hovering above Sandia Mountains have been reported. All the thoughts and prayers from around the country are much appreciated. I will update if and when any real information comes in. It's a bit odd how his wife says that, right? However, no sightings of mothership hovering above the, although at this point, with absolutely no sign of him, maybe the best hypothesis is that aliens beamed him up in the mothership. A joke, clearly. Is it a joke? I don't know. Why would you say that about your husband going missing? I don't know. Maybe she's got a good sense of humor. What do you think about that? So yeah, it's very strange, isn't it? When you put all this together. And obviously, Trump hasn't done anything about this yet. He says he's going to get involved, but obviously he's got other things on his mind at the moment. So what do you think? It's a bit suspicious, isn't it? I hope and pray that he's okay. I hope he comes back with a safe, legitimate story. But it is quite weird. Anyway, I'll leave it with you with that. Tell me in the comments what you think about this all of this. It'd be interesting to hear your thoughts. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.